Hi everyone, I'm Roosje and I'm the current project intern of Deveron Projects. One of the great jobs I got to do as an intern is hosting the Accelerating Soapbox Talks series, where I can speak with musicians from different parts of Europe. Today, however, I will talk to two musicians closer to home, namely Steve Brown and Lucas McIntosh, who live in Huntly, Scotland. So to give a brief introduction, Lucas McIntosh is a Huntly local and has been playing the pipes for 9 years. He plays with the Portsoy Pipe Band and the National Royal Air Force Air Cadets Pipes and Drums. And in 2019, the RAFAC band went to Horse Guards Parade to participate in the household division beating the retreats. Over lockdown, Lucas has been receiving a pibroch lessons from Dr. Jack Taylor of Aboyne. Lucas also plays the violin in the school orchestra, and this year he will be heading off to university to study for a master's in chemical engineering. Today he's joined by his pipe teacher, Steve Brown, who has been passing on his knowledge to Lucas for the past 9 years. Steve Brown is a Northeast native and trained forester, having been born in Banff and brought up in White Hills, Riney and Huntly. Steve has been playing the pipe since he was 12 years old, having played in pipe bands such in Huntly, Aberdeen and Nairn, along with playing small pipes and whistles in various other folk groups. Steve leads the Strathspey Fiddlers, which have represented Scotland at Celtic festivals and events throughout the British Isles, Ireland, Germany, USA and Canada, and is a founding member of the Eastdale Band, which is a nice coincidence as I'm currently living in Eastdale. So hi, Steve and Lucas. Thanks for joining today. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah.
Yes, good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice to hear. So let's start with the interview. I prepared some questions for you. And yeah, it is not, you can consider it as more as a informal talk. So yes, my first question is directed to you, Lucas. You are the youngest member of the project Ensemble Eòrpa, and I already had the opportunity to be there when you recorded your musical part in Square Dew last week. I already have heard and seen bagpipers before in my life, but you are the first piper I heard play during my stay here in Huntly. So I want to thank you for the unique experience that you gave me. Can you maybe tell me more what drove you to start playing the instrument? What was it something that was almost pre-decided for you, or were you drawn to it on your own accord?
Well, no one in my family plays the pipes, so I don't know why I wanted to play, but from a very early age, I always wanted to play.
And is it also maybe because music is important to the Scottish culture and also quite a tradition? So you already told me that your family is not really are not really musicians. I know that for a fact, Steve, your children are well-skilled musicians, so it's already part of your family and tradition. So yeah, so you started on your own accords then, and why the pipes and the violin, I heard?
Well, I started playing the violin before I played the pipes. My mom plays the violin, so she sort of coerced me into doing that. But I really wanted to play the pipes, and they took over when I started playing them, and then the fiddle went on the back burner, so to speak, since then. So.
Okay, for me, the bagpipes are a big instrument and it looks very magical and mysterious because we don't have that in the Netherlands. So I wonder, I know it's a very hard instrument to master, I heard. But can you maybe explain more for the people who don't really know how the bagpipes work? And yeah, maybe also explain more what pibroch is.
Yeah, so the pipes are a woodwind instrument, so they're driven by a reed, and there are 5 tubes that come out of the bag. One of them's the one that you blow into the bag. There are 3 on your shoulder, and they're the drones. They're a constant pitch. There's 1 bass drone and 2 tenor drones. And then the last tube is the chanter, and that's what plays the melody. And obviously you can't blow all the time to keep all of them going at once. So you blow into the bag, which provides air to keep everything going whilst you take a breath and recover. And then, yeah, it's just a cycle.
Does it happen sometimes that you lose your breath and then something funny is going to happen with the sound you make, or?
If you haven't been practicing, it can happen. Yeah, it's a physical thing that you build up, I think.
Yeah, how was that in the beginning? Because you're now 18, I think, someone told me, and you already played the pipes for 9 years now, so you started when you were 9. Can you maybe recall the first moments of you playing the pipes? Did you thought like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, or did you thought this is much more tougher than I thought beforehand?
I think it was probably quite difficult. You certainly did a lot of pop, I think. But as I say, it comes with playing. You build it up over time.
Okay. So Steve, over to you. Even though you're not a participant of Ensemble Eòrpa, I heard from some valuable sources that you live and breathe Scottish traditional music and also dance. Even though I'm sadly not from Scotland, I, as an outsider, associate Scottish folk music almost entirely with the great Highland bagpipe. I was wondering if you can tell me what it is, what is at the core of Scottish traditional music.
Well, that's quite a tricky question. I think dance is probably at the core of some of it. There's a military aspect to it, which is probably how the bagpipes have lasted, how it lasted most other bagpipe playing places in the world, of which there were quite a few. But because it was a military thing, and the British Army, the Scottish regiments all had pipe bands, and they went all over the world. I think this maybe cemented the music, and they tended to play a lot of marches, retreat marches, 6/8 marches, and that kept it going. And the army was the main thrust of piping, and solo competition work was also quite popular. And then the soldiers coming back from various wars would start up town bands, and this has then become quite a popular pastime all over Scotland, really. Hundreds and hundreds of pipe bands. And there's a World Pipe Band Championship in Glasgow every year, and bands come from all over the world for this, particularly the old Commonwealth. Also in the Netherlands, there's a few bands in the Netherlands, but South Africa, India, Pakistan, they all have bands, so it seems to be quite popular. Pibroch is the classical music of the Highland pipes, which is a different sort of music, really, and it's based on Gaelic song, and it tends to be, there's what's called an urla, which is a basic melody, and then this is embellished until you come to the end, which is the grunlur, which is a very quite a complicated embellishment of the main tune, and then you return back to the original melody to finish off. It's not so popular now, unfortunately, because it's quite studious. You have to really stick at it, and it's a slightly different scale from the Kilbeg, which is small music. So it's Kilmore, which is the Gaelic for big music, which is what's called the classical pipes. But that's the sort of piping tradition. But I mean, there's a huge fiddle tradition, clarsach, which is a small harp, and also piano. So it's quite a broad-based folk tradition. And for a long time, pipes were solo instruments, difficult to integrate them into other bands. But because of electronics, you can do that now. You know, because you can modify the sound, amplify the fiddles, and dampen the violin, and bring them all together. And also, the small pipe being used, that's another thing for a small venue in a pub. You can play with violins, and it's quite nice for the human voice. So there's been quite a burgeoning, I think, folk music. It used to be old guys with beards playing guitars and singing quite long songs, which are wonderful in their own way, but unless you're into it, it maybe sounded a bit tedious after a while. But I embrace both these traditions because I'm actually from a fiddle background. My grandfather and my great auntie Lizzie, they were all fiddlers and piano players too. And so I like both. I do love the fiddle. It's one of my. It's always a competition between the pipes and the fiddle for me.
Okay.
But they have, you know, I like the pipes at different times and I like the fiddle at other times. So yeah, that's my idea. And then there's a song tradition, which I haven't even, this is the instrumental tradition. There's a huge song tradition, especially in the northeast of Scotland, which we probably haven't touched upon. Sorry, it's probably too long.
That sounds exciting, those riff-off competitions. It is well noticed that the bagpipes are very embedded with Scottish traditional music. It is also an instrument that is very unique and has a really, and is very distinctive. You really can recognize the sound of the bagpipe. Does this have any effect of the popularity of the instrument? Are young people encouraged to learn how to play the pipes? Or do you notice that there is not a lot of interest from the younger generation?
I think that at the moment, pipe is probably undergoing a resurgence. I don't really know because I haven't been around for that long. But I think it's a lot more cool to play the pipes now than it has been in the past, thanks to people like Gordon Duncan and Martin Bennett, and people who have brought it into 20th and 21st century.
Okay. Lucas, I was also wondering, do you have any friends that also play the pipes, or are you a lonely wolf within your friend group?
With outside the bands that I play in, I'm the only one. Yeah.
And Steve, you teach a lot of young people. Do you notice there is like an interest coming from the younger generation, or is it maybe decreasing?
Yeah, it's there's a pipe band tradition in Huntly going back quite a long time, and most youngsters who want to learn the pipes in Huntly would go to the pipe band and be taught by the pipe major, Hamish Dean and Ian Stewart. But that's really popular. That is really popular in the whole of the northeast, and lots of young people play in pipe bands. And the Persoy band, which I joined along with Lucas, there's quite a core of young people, quite I mean, 9, 10 years old, and that's to be encouraged. But I'm not so interested. I enjoy the pipe band, but I'm more interested really in the folk band scene. And it's a young man's game really, because technically you've got to be such a tremendous player to be able to play these fast reels and jigs and all sort of syncopated rhythms. And it's a different instrument in the hands of an expert. There's a lot of people around who play. So I'm not being critical, it's great that they play, but they haven't really learned it properly. It's a difficult instrument to play well. It's an instrument because it's technical, you can play, you know, okay and be in a band. But if you want to be a solo player and really show the instrument at its best, you've got to practice a lot, and you've got to, you know, play in public a lot. And if you get like-minded people to play with, whether it's fiddles, drums, or piano pipes altogether. That to me is the way to move it on, you know. And so there's a lot of interest in that.
So there's a lot of time investing in learning how to play the pipes. Lucas, can I ask you how many hours go into your week to play and practice the bagpipe? I wonder if Lucas is still here.
He's gone.
Is he very good with having a still face, or is he gone? Steve, can you maybe answer for becoming a good piper? How many hours of practice in a week do you think it's has to go for practicing?
Well, there's no answer to being a good piper other than practice. And some players pick it up quicker than others, so there's not a standard time to play. But anybody who's taking up the instrument must realise that it's difficult to play well, and it takes hours and hours, really.
Yeah.
Initially, when I take youngsters, I ask them to do 10 minutes because they just play a small practice chanter until they start to get a bit more competent and their lips get a bit stronger. And then it stretches to quarter of an hour, 20 minutes. And then half an hour, really. And if they go into the big pipes, really an hour a day, I would think is the minimum. But I know that's really difficult because there are so many competing things for people nowadays. But ideally, I think an hour a day would be good.
So, for instance, if I want to start playing the bagpipe now, I will start at a very old age then, starting to play the instrument. What would your advice be with practicing wise? Do you have what kind of exercises do you do?
Well, as I say, you don't play in the big Highland pipes. You've got to learn 7 tunes by ear, by heart, before you come to that. So it's a basic physical exercise of playing scales, basically, until you're comfortable with the fingering and the blowing. And so you just build up stamina for your lungs and the strength in your lips, and then the facility of your fingers to move quite quickly. And you build up this over a period of time. And one of the things about bagpipes, because there's a constant flow of air, it's difficult to play 2 notes the same, following each other. And to give that impression, you play a grace note in between. So, which would be like a G grace note, you play that, and that would break the sound, making you think that you played 2 separate notes. And the grace notes are embellishments for the tune. And the basic tune is fairly straightforward. Once you bring in grace notes, it gets a bit more difficult. And getting the whole coordination together is the same for any instrument, but because the speed and dexterity you need to play pipes well, it means you've really got to play a lot.
So you need a very strong lung capacity. Do you say it like that? Lung inhoud?
Yeah.
So no smoking for people who really want to get into the pipe playing. Also for other health reasons. So I already spoke to several musicians from different parts of Europe, and I'm always curious how music is embedded in a specific culture. I noticed that music is at the heart of the Scottish culture, more so than, for instance, the role music plays in my home country, the Netherlands. Why do you both, Lucas is not here. Why do you think it is so embedded in the Scottish culture, and what does this Scottish music culture means to you personally?
I'm not sure actually. I lead a young band of mostly fiddlers, and I have them for 3-4 years, and then they maybe go on to higher education. And there's always a continual feed coming through. Parents will take them and they learn with a teacher. I don't teach violin, but I bring the group together and we play tunes together, and I make upsets and arrangements and things. And they keep coming. There are sometimes there's a little dip and you think, is it maybe going to be less popular? And then you'll maybe get a resurgence again. I don't know, because quite a lot of people from this area have gone to the Conservatoire in Glasgow to do traditional music, and they play all over the world really in various bands. And this is something for them to aim for, you know. This is role models for them. And I think that helped perpetuate it a little bit. But I really don't know why. As I say, my grandparents played, my great-grandfather played, and there's a bit of family, there's all those kind of families that come together with it. Some people don't do it at all. They prefer, you know, rap or whatever. But you can do both. You know, it's possible to play. And I play piano and I play blues and rock and roll and stuff on the piano. I don't really play much traditional stuff at all.
Okay.
So you can do both really. And the more the merrier, the more stuff you play, you know.
I quite envy you, to be honest, because I grew up in a very non-musical family. So I now have a very nice image of you. And I also read that your children play music a lot, thanks to their upbringings. And your grandparents also played. So I imagine you playing on every Sunday afternoon the music together. It's like a very nice image to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's nice that it's like a very intergenerational tradition. Hi, Lucas. Nice to see you back again on the screen. So I asked Steve just now what Scottish traditional music means to him personally, and I was wondering if I can ask you the same question.
Well, I think it's really all about tradition at the heart of it. There are great piping families and fiddling dynasties, I suppose it would be called, where the traditions are passed down from generation to generation. And I think it might not be unique, but it's definitely one of the major points that sets it apart from other types of music, that there's so much history behind it as well.
Yeah, I heard that you just told me that your mother plays the violin. Yeah, you also play the violin and the pipes. Are there sometimes moments in the week that you just play together, like a mom and son quality time session?
Sometimes, yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's so lovely. I cannot imagine playing music with my mom. Well, it's interesting to hear. I also went to Ireland. I worked there for a few months. And I also noticed that playing the concertina or the fiddler is very, how do you say it? Present also in school. You have to play it. It's part of their daily routine. So maybe it's also the Celtic culture in general that it's so embedded in your daily lives. And yeah. So it's really nice to hear that. Steve, you're a forester and you have a big love for trees or nature in general, I reckon. Do you think that the Scottish landscape has a strong influence on the Scottish music?
I suppose so. There's, a lot of tunes are called after features, like lochs. Loch Morar is a nice story. There's a fiddle tune about the Spey. So there's hills of Alva. There's a whole range of tunes that are called after features in the landscape. Not so many about trees, which is something that I've always wondered about. The most famous tune about a tree that I know, Lucas will know it as well, is just called the Rowan Tree. But there is no tune called the Scots Pine, and the Scots Pine is the most common tree in Scotland. In fact, it's our national tree, and somebody has got to write a tune about the Scots Pine. I find that curious. But yes, the landscape is important. The light is important. Phil Cunningham, who plays accordion, wrote a lovely tune called "The Gentle Light That Wakes Me." And there's quite a few sort of little references to that, which I think, so I think the landscape's very important. Yeah.
Okay, one of my only and beloved songs I always listen to and sing along with Jazz, my colleague, is Loch Lomond, the song about Loch Lomond.
Yeah.
I really love that song. I guess Jess is now laughing behind the screens, but nice. And I also reckon Scottish music is also a way of storytelling. It's about the history, about clans, I think. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, there's so much about your music culture, and I really find it interesting. So Lucas, when you play the bagpipe or practicing, I assume you often find yourself playing the traditional Scottish tunes. But do you also like to play songs from different music genres in which a bagpipe is not normally part of the composition? Do you have a song you enjoy playing which does not really fall within the genre of Scottish traditional music? And you like to share it with me, which song it is?
There are only 9 notes on the bagpipe, so there's not much scope for contemporary tunes or different tunes. So.
Oh, that is just me not really knowing about the 9 tunes. Oh, thanks for explaining me that. So there's no Ed Sheeran song that you sometimes play with the bagpipes, or okay.
It's not a European normal scale, so it's sometimes it just doesn't quite sound right. I mean, you can play other tunes and you can transpose when you go off the scale, but it just never sounds quite right. I don't think, to be honest with you. It's better to play traditional tunes, and most tunes are written in the key of A or D on the pipes, but the pipes themselves are supposed to be in B flat. It's a curious thing.
Okay. Sad. I was hoping for really interesting answers on that one, Lucas. Steve, is it fair to say that it is fair to say that you have been longer in this world than Lucas has, and that you are a well practiced Scottish musician who performed a lot and also taught many students. When you were a bit younger and joined the, sorry if my pronunciation is wrong, mid-Argyll bands? Okay, Argyll bands?
Mid-Argyll, yeah.
Yeah, more mid-Argyll bands based in Loch Lomond. Oh, jeeps. Sorry, can you maybe repeat that in a correct pronunciation for the listeners back home?
Loch Lomond.
Thank you. So you told me in your bio that you wrote that you encountered older men who did not particularly like the modern ideas of piping. How, in broad terms, has Scottish traditional music changed over your lifetimes when it comes with composition-wise or interest, or is it more modernized, if I can say that?
Well, I'll start with that because obviously I've seen a bit of a change, really, because as I said, there was a big influence of the army, and pipe bands were ceremonial, basically, and they played marches, really, mostly, for marching up and down the streets. They did play faster tunes such as the spades and reels and latterly hornpipes and jigs. But initially it was mostly marches, slow airs, that sort of thing. And the older guys didn't like people like Gordon Duncan coming along and playing these fast, interesting tunes. There's 9 notes, but Gordon could bend these notes and probably make them about like 16 different notes because he had such a great facility with his fingers. And he wrote wonderful tunes, syncopated rhythms, and they transpose well to the violin, and a lot of fiddlers play Gordon Duncan pipe tunes. And so I think a young guy like that just took the piping world by storm, and lots of young guys and girls as well have been motivated by it. by the likes of Gordon Duncan, Fred Morrison, Phil MacDonald, you know, lots of really great pipers. And it's just moving tradition on into a completely different place, really. And they can also, they play fast technically, but they also know how to tune the instrument. They know how to make the drones sound wonderful. And the whole thing is a unit. It's very easy in pipe bands to get away with stuff, you know, because there's a lot of players. Solo piper playing electrified has got to be spot on. And so that's the motivating thing, I think. And I really love the way it's going. But I think Lucas, who's a young lad, also likes the old tradition, but he embraces the modern stuff as well. But I'll let Lucas tell you what he thinks.
But there's such a wealth of old tunes, and you know, so much has gone before the sort of I suppose you could call it a revolution, maybe not, but yeah, there are just great melodies that have been thought up, you know, 100, 150 years ago, and they're still perfectly valid, even with you know, a more modern take. And as Steve was saying, the great players now can do both, and yeah, it's just very good to see. I think that there is a progression in the pipe.
Okay, do you like to experiment some now and then, Lucas? Because I think, Steve, you told me about translating it also to a violin. Well, Lucas, you play both of the instruments. Are you sometimes in a mood of experimentation with both the instruments, or?
Sometimes, yeah, I've tried to compose a tune or two myself, but yeah, I'm
Is it
not
published?
Sure. No.
Okay, maybe you should start a YouTube channel and share with the world. No. Okay, Lucas and Steve, I was wondering, unfortunately, COVID has been in our lives for a year now, and I never got the chance to see Huntly before the pandemic. And I hear often that usually Scottish music is played on the square, at the square, or maybe during the farmers market or social events such as Kaylee's. Can you describe to me how the musical life in Huntly was like before COVID threw a spanner in the works?
Yeah, you answer first, Lucas.
I think it was. I think there's more going on in and around Huntly than in most places. I think the Tin Hut, Gartley, and well, Deveron Projects had a Kaylee as well in January, I think it was, in early 2020. And I think Huntly Pipe Band are quite good at playing in the town and getting, you know, noticed by the local people. For as you say, farmers markets, and there was a parade for the Highland dancer, I think, recently as well. And of course the Highland Games as well. There are a few Highland Games in the area. So.
Highland Games, is that how often in a year does that occur? The Highland Games. It sounds amazing. I want to join one day.
Mainly in the summer, but maybe once every 2 weeks in the summer months.
Oh, really? It's very often then in this when there's good weather, I assume. Well, that sounds like I have to visit Huntly when the COVID is over, because it really sounds nice. I really want to join a Kaylee once in my life. Sounds amazing. So Lucas, you are one of the students of Steve, and I assume that normally you practice also together in the same room. Since playing music in person with other musicians is a bit restricted, how are you still practicing the bagpipe with Steve? Have you been taking lessons online or finding a way to play with other musicians in the same room? I don't know how it goes.
I don't think I've played in the same room with another piper since March last year. So it's all been over the internet, which has been
That is over a year now. So it's via internet. And does it feel the same or not? A lot of freezing is happening between playing the instrument or?
Well, you can't play over the internet in real time.
Yeah.
So the cadet band that I'm in, every Friday we have an online practice. And one person plays and everyone else mutes their microphone so they can play along with the person who's playing.
Oh,
and
that's
not,
smart. And do you enjoy it?
It's the best of a bad situation, I think.
Because you also have school. What are you currently doing? You are still at school or university? I don't know. Okay, school. So you have a lot of things happening online over the past few years. I mean, over the last year, it feels like ages. Um, and how does it go with you, Steve? Because you are teaching the students. Do you enjoy it, or do you miss the time that you were like in the same room?
Yeah, well, I mean, Lucas was my last pupil, and I haven't taken anybody else on. But I've got the Strathspey Fiddlers, and it's all sort of stopped. My internet's not great. It's quite good today, which is amazing. But I can't play with other people because it's never in time. But we've done a small virtual concert by recording ourselves, playing along to somebody who's playing the melody, and then putting it all together. It was sort of a charity concert, and that was quite good. I've had organised a tune writing competition for the young people, and so we've done that. But what we haven't done is actually been able to meet physically, and that's really been quite difficult, especially for the younger members who play with the older ones. So it's not been great at all, really. And I can't wait for this lockdown to finish so that we can get back. Maybe go to the pub in Huntly, play a few tunes with some of our pals, and that's all to look forward to. But fingers crossed, really. But I know that some people have been able to work around the lockdown, but because my internet's terrible, I've struggled really to get around it. So I've just been playing the piano for the whole year. I've just been concentrating on playing the piano, and then I'll pick up my piping when we go back to the pursuit.
I hope that the music culture in Huntly is going to be in full glory soon.
Yeah.
So Steve, with the Strathspey Fiddlers Group, you had an online concert, you just told me, but you also represented Scotland at events in different countries. Since COVID caused a rupture of playing and creating music together with other musicians or with students and not having a live audience to play for, I can imagine that a certain feeling of connectedness, of shared experience also must have been diminished. Are there ways in which you try to rekindle this feeling?
Well, some of the Strathspey Fiddlers draws musicians from the towns and villages around this area, Keith, Buckie, Fochabers, and we meet every Friday for a practice. But some of the people go to school together, and so quite a few come from Keith. So they've actually been able to meet in small groups, and a couple of girls in Fochabers have been able to meet and play together. And so this has happened in little groups. But there's a young girl, Kitty, who lives just down the road from me. She's on her own, and she doesn't know any, so she's lost a bit of momentum. It's quite difficult. But there's no substitute for actually physically meeting and playing with people. The computer is okay, but it's purely a substitute, and we'll never get over this actual playing together. It's a completely different experience, and hopefully we'll be back there shortly.
Yeah. Okay. Is there also any advice you give to your students? Because, as you said, the bagpipe, playing the bagpipe is very hard to master. You need dedication, perseverance. How do you stimulate and motivate your students during these hard times? Because it's a tough time for young people, I reckon.
Well, some people are self-motivated. Lucas is like that, I think, and he's going to an old friend of mine, Jack Taylor, who taught my son. And I don't know how Jack motivates you, but I think you're also self-motivated. But he's a very good teacher, I think. Would you say?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think a weekly lesson is motivation enough, because I want to do well. So I have to practice during the week. Otherwise, yeah, won't be so good. But there's nothing to look forward to as well. That's the other thing. It's normally you'd have a goal, or playing it somewhere you'd have to practice for, and there would be an end result. But because it's seemingly never ending, this lockdown, there's no goal to aim for.
You have the Ensemble Eòrpa concert to look forward to. Drawing on that, Lucas, you are the only musician in the whole ensemble that has been recorded by Lizabett and Graeme in person. Was this the first time that you have been able to work with other musicians in person since the pandemic? And if so, how did it feel?
Yes, it is the first time I've worked with any other musician since the pandemic began. It was just good to be out playing again.
And then you were there in Square Deal for the first time playing with other musicians, and 4 people taking a lot of pictures of you. like something magical that happened, like playing music physically. What, in Square Deal? That is so 2019. Wow, amazing to see it back again. Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I loved the way you and Graeme were interacting. Like you spoke a secret language almost. It went so well. My compliments. The recording of Lucas on the bagpipes of you, took place in Square Deal, a building that features on the album as inspiration for one of the tracks. Lizabett, so she's the mind behind Ensemble Eòrpa, take bothy ballad Bonnie's Bell. I wonder if one of you, or if you can both, share a bit of history about the ballads and Huntley's own Boggie's Bonnie Bell song. I don't know if you know it, Lucas, or if Steve knows more about this.
Yeah, I know the song. A good friend of mine who used to own Eastdale, Keith Coburn, he used to sing that song. And it's the usual sort of ballad from the Northeast. The father doesn't approve of the daughter's choice, and it all goes horribly wrong. So there's quite a sort of theme of that going through the Northeast ballads, but also about the farms and working in the farms. And I believe that was it has something to do with Square Deal originally, when it was a tinsmith, I think, that shop. But that's quite sketchy, I'm afraid. But it's a nice tune, and it's performed a lot by the old style bothy ballad singers. Yeah.
Yeah, because Belle used to live Square Deal. I heard from Robin and Jess, so that's a nice connection to see it in full circle that Lucas played last week in Square Deal. So Ensemble Eòrpa driving force is to foster global connection through music and encourage new creative relations in a time where we are physically apart. The majority of Ensemble Eòrpa has been recorded digitally across hundreds of miles. Although Lucas, you recorded your part in real life. Do you think that this way of remotely making music together will have an impact on the way musicians perform with each other in the post-corona era?
Well, the cadet pipe band that I play in, that we practice online, because we all live over Scotland and England as well. We only ever meet up about 3 or 4 times a year normally. So to be able to practice, even if it is virtually, more regularly, that's really helpful. But there's no substitute to playing with people in the same place.
Because you meet them four times a year, you just told me. Are you also going to do, is it also on fun trips? You go somewhere else than your usual environment? That is really nice. And also a very special experience to have, I think, as a musician, to travel and meet musicians from other countries. Do you have any knowledge who the other musicians are in the ensemble? So it's going to be like a blind date when you have the concert that you will meet them for the first time. That's going to be exciting then. So I always end the episode of Soapbox Talk with asking whether you can recommend a song or piece of music to me or to the listeners back home. So if you have to choose between all the music you know, what would you recommend? There's no wrong answer. Guilty pleasures are also welcome, to be honest.
You mean piping music or any kind of traditional music?
It can be anything. It can be traditional Scottish music. It can be Elton John. It can be Kate Bush. I don't know. I'm happy with every recommendation.
Not really Elton John, anyway. I would say, for my own part, I had a situation recently where I had to choose a slow and emotional tune, and so just off the top of my head, I would probably listen to "The Gentle Light That Wakes Me" by a northeast fiddle where he's from in Inverness, called Duncan Chisholm, and anything that he plays is fantastic. As one of my favourite players. But anything in the piping line by Donald MacLeod, Lucas will laugh at that. He was one of the greatest composers. I would listen to that every day of the week. Yeah.
Okay, I write it down now for my own interest. And Lucas, do you have anything to recommend?
I was going to recommend a Donald MacLeod tune, the Field of Gold, the Simon Fraser University Pipe Band do an excellent version.
Okay, I'm also wondering. I'm going to listen to that on my Spotify this afternoon. I'm also wondering, Steve, because I'm in Eastdale now. There's a lot of CDs and music albums behind me.
Yeah.
If I look closely, will I find something created by your hands? Or if I look at the music behind me in Eastdale, will I find something you created, an album or a musical piece?
I don't know. I don't know. Probably not.
No. Okay.
I know that collection very well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, Keith was my best friend. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been there very many times and had great sessions on the sofa there. So
it's nice.
It means a lot. Yeah.
So you have been here in this house before, so somehow we are not that remotely apart from each other, no. I guess. Well, thank you, both of you, for joining this talk. I really hope in the future, when the lockdown is over, that I can see you both play on the square, or maybe during the Kayleys. I really want to join that one. Yes, I also want to thank the audience who are watching or listening. I hope that you are also doing well during these surrealistic times. And a lot of good wishes, warm wishes from Huntly, Scotland, to all of you, wherever you are. Yeah, thank you again.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you very much.